Yes, hi. It is Saturday, May 6th. I'm here in my kitchen in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I wanted to make a video today concerning basically my rabbits. So I hope you watch this video. I hope you watch the entire video because there's some twists and turns to the story, and to really get a full picture of kind of what's going on, it would be great if you could watch the whole video. So I really appreciate that. So basically, in a nutshell, what this video, why I'm making it, is there's a sort of a battle going on between myself and the city of Tulsa, specifically the Shelter and Animal Control Department, concerning my rabbits. By the letter of the ordinance, I am breaking the ordinance, and I admit that. However, there is a human side to the story, animal slash human side, and that's what I'm going to present today. And I hope you listen to the whole video. So my journey here with rabbits started back in 2015. I was in San Francisco at the time. I ran a music school and a music store. I was a teacher there from 2007 to 2020. In 2020, the pandemic hit and it closed up my businesses. I was sitting there for many months, couldn't make any money, couldn't go anywhere, and it was not looking like it was going to change anytime soon. So I started looking around, basically in every state of the country, trying to find a possible place to move to and start fresh somewhere else. So I had some criteria sort of when I was looking for a new place. One was that it wasn't a real expensive place. Somewhere near an urban area, just due to my type of work that I do, which is music. And the other thing concerned trying to find a fenced-in yard, which was for my rabbits. My rabbits, I had two rabbits, Dr. Beats and Melody. They were given to me by a student in 2015. And I had them in a cage for a few years in my office. I had a really small office. And then I moved them to kind of a slightly bigger open air pen when I moved to a different room. But it was pretty confined. And I felt bad about keeping these creatures, so confined. I'd never had rabbits before. I didn't know anything about them. But I knew that that they should probably be allowed to hop around and just for their health. So when the pandemic hit, I was like, well, here's an opportunity maybe to give back thanks to these two animals that really helped my business out. I mean, they were a big part of my business. Like at the end of every music lesson, me and the students would give parsley to the rabbits. It was just this tradition that developed. And there were I know students that came to my lessons more actually just to see the rabbits than to have a music lesson. So they were just a big part of it and just a real blast. So I wanted to pay them back for being such cool little creatures. So that's sort of a backstory on how I got them. Now, while I was there, some things happened which kind of changed my view on these animals. Little things happened, but then there were some larger things that happened, which really made me scratch my head and go, "Wow, I don't know what's going on with these animals, but they're kind of interesting." And so let me tell you a few things that occurred. So a lot of times after my day at work, I'd hang out in my office and I'd turn on some music. And at some point, I decided, I'd take my rabbits out, and sometimes I'd actually kind of stand there and I'd actually kind of dance around a little bit with the rabbit in my arms here, just to see what the reaction was. and they didn't freak out. They actually were fairly relaxed and let me do that. And they weren't trying to jump out of my arms or anything. So I was like, well, that's kind of cool. And at some point, I also started taking their paws, and I'd move their paws like up and down to the beat of the music, just to see what happens. And they let me do it. Both the rabbits I had let me do it, and their paws were fairly relaxed. They didn't try to pull their paws away. And they just let me move their paws up and down to the rhythm and music. So I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. So then I got the idea at some point, and I can't remember when this was specifically, but I'm guesstimating maybe 2018, 2017, 2018. I decided to take the rabbits into one of our piano studios and sit down with them and play some simple melodies while I'm holding their paws. Put the rabbit on my lap, put their two front paws up on the keyboard, and then move their paws around to play simple melodies. And that's exactly what I did. I had them play. We would always do 3 songs. We'd do Mary Had a Little Lamb, Ode to Joy, and Jingle Bells. Now those songs only use 5 notes, and you don't have to do a lot of lateral moving with the paws, so they're just kind of basically right in front of them. And the rabbits let me move their paws around, and play these melodies, and they wouldn't. I mean, maybe at first they were a little bit nervous, but they didn't freak out. They didn't jump off my lap. They let me move their paws around. And one thing is, many, many times, now I did this about once every week or 2 for a few years. Many times they'd actually become, especially Dr. Beats, I would notice that by the 3rd song, he actually was more relaxed. Like I could move his arms around and paws around easier because he was less tense, which I thought was fascinating. It was like, this obviously is not having a negative effect on them. And is this relaxing physiological reaction, is that having to do with something to do with the music, or them making a connection that their paws are actually creating this sound? So very interesting. It was a very interesting kind of thing to witness. And then to top that off was probably like 5 to 8 times with Dr. Beats, not with the other rabbit. Even though the other rabbit was comfortable and let me move his paws around, he didn't have the same reactions as Dr. Beats had. So Dr. Beats probably 5 to 8 times. I noticed that he would purr, and rabbits purr by clicking their teeth. He'd purr by the time we're ending the 3rd song. So I was like, whoa, that's pretty freaky. Is this rabbit actually purring because of the sound of music? Or something about, a connection of his paws striking the keys and that physical movement, and plus the sound is causing him pleasure or something. What was it? Or was it that, like he's just sitting, I'm holding him, is that causing him to purr? That wouldn't normally just cause him to purr. What was it? It was very, very interesting. So after that, those are the incidences that really kind of changed my life in a way. In that, wow, I don't know anything about this animal, and they've done some things, and there were other little things that they did too that kind of made me scratch my head, like that's kind of interesting. That kind of made me think, I kind of want to study this creature a little bit, and I really like them. I think there's something going on, and maybe they are lovers of music, which would make them kind of akin to my profession and what I do. So here's Dr. Beats. This was taken on the piano we used to play on. One day I just stuck a camera out to my right and said, "Hey, Dr. Beats," and he looked over and took that shot, and it actually turned out really well. So that's the backstory of my rabbits and my connection to rabbits, and kind of the loyalty now I have to this animal, because I think maybe there's a lot more to them than we all know. So I found this place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, moved here in September 2020, and it has a yard. It's not a very good yard, unfortunately. And what I mean by that is that the grass does not grow very well, which is kind of a bummer because I wanted more grass for rabbits, but you have to make do with what you got. And so the grass is there, but it just takes a while to get going. Like my yard is like a month behind everybody else's yard for some reason. I don't know why. The fenced-in yard is good, but the fence itself is kind of old. So there's places where the fence is not connected with the ground really well, and there's a hole in one part, and there's just little things like that. So I've tried to rabbit proof it. A lot harder than I thought it would be, especially when you start dealing with baby rabbits, which is what happened later on. Baby rabbits can fit through one of those chain link fence holes really easily. So it's been an adventure trying to seal up my yard. I have not done it as well as I could, and part of that too has been I've had some physical issues. I had some serious illnesses over the last few years since the pandemic. Not COVID, but I did get, I believe, COVID earlier this year. So the last few years, really since around the pandemic, I've had a number of fairly serious issues with health things, and I have to do like rehabilitation stuff, several hours a day. And so, physical activities and stuff like that, working out my yard, to be honest, a lot of times I'm just not up for it, and which is unfortunate. I try to do what I can. So with my let me just check something. All right, we're doing good. So some things I've done to try to better my rabbits' lives is I bought a shelter. It was an open air or open-ended shelter, like the north and south side or east and west side are open. I have put blankets and things over that I can enclose it, for times when there's more serious weather. But they're open-ended. So that's 8 foot by 7 foot by 5 foot high. It's been great. It works really, really well. And the rabbits go in there, like if it's raining or snowing or something going on like that, they will typically go and hide in the shelter. So that has worked great. To make their life more comfortable within the shelter, I bought I guess it's about 3.5 feet tall. It's a cooling unit. I don't know if that's the official name for it, but it's one of these things where you can put ice cubes in it and it blows out cooler air, and not exactly as efficient as an air conditioner, but does help out some. The Oklahoma summers are fairly brutal. And heat can really affect rabbits in a negative way. It can kill them. So I was a bit concerned about that. So I bought this cooling unit pretty much the day I was here, first moved here. And so, for example, that cooling unit, like say it's 95 degrees outside, I have that cooling unit on. It can knock it down 7 to 10 degrees or so. So it helps out some, and I'll find the rabbits sitting in front of the cooling unit where the air is blowing out. So it's helping out a bit. I also have I spent another $150 on a nice, fairly good industrial fan for days when it's not super, super hot, but I'll turn that on, and once again, just gets the air flowing. And I'll see rabbits kind of sitting near the fan, and I think that helps out too. I have a heater in there for the winter. The winters here are not real bad, but sometimes January, February, you might have some days that go down into the teens or maybe even a little bit lower, 20s. Not a severe winter place though so far that I've experienced, and there can be some snow and ice a little bit, but the summers are more of a factor. But I have a heater in there, and that's rabbits don't seem as affected by the colder weather, but the heater is there just to bring it up a little bit if it's real cold, and also just to it's been very effective in the winter months for keeping the water bowls that I have out in the shelter for the rabbits from freezing over. So I usually turn the heater on if it's getting near 32 degrees. So I also have a bug zapper in there. You've got some flies. It's not overwhelming or anything, but there are some flies due to the fact that you got some animals there, and that's been helpful also. So that leads us up basically to kind of what has been happening over the last, I guess, about 5 months or so. So back in, I've got the papers here. So I think I received a notice on November 4th of 2022 saying that I am illegally keeping rabbits, and this is from the Tulsa Animal Welfare and Shelter Department. And so I gave them a call, and they said that rabbits need to be confined, and you're breaking the ordinance and so on. And I kind of just nothing really happened of it, and I was just hoping that they just kind of forgot about it. Supposedly there was a complaint by someone. I'm assuming in the neighborhood. What I think happened, unless it's just somebody who has a beef against me and it's something personal, which is possible, but I think what happened is I did have a few rabbits escape from my yard. And this was due to, like I said, the problems with my fence and just trying to upkeep the fence, because things change. It's real windy here sometimes, and things move around, and rabbits will dig under stuff and they'll pull on stuff, and they've found a way. Some of them have found a way to actually get out of the yard. So I had some rabbits get out. At this time, I think there's 4 or 5 rabbits that live kind of around my yard that were once my rabbits, and in a way, I kind of consider them still my rabbits. They're like having outside cats. I have outside rabbits, and I leave them food twice a day and leave a water bowl out by my garage, and they come by and eat my food and just kind of hang out, in a radius around my property. I live in a duplex, so by my side of the property, they typically are hanging around. So I get this notice, that first notice. I kind of blow it off in a way, just thinking, I hope these people just find something better to do. I'm sure there's cockfighting or dog fighting or dogs on chains that haven't been fed, or instead of some rabbits hopping around a fenced-in yard and not bothering one person at all, not making any noise, not a public health problem, just nothing. So I was just irritated by it, and I was just like, are these people for real? How could this be a problem? So I did receive another notice, but that was another one that was just seemed kind of like a warning, and I was just like, yeah, hopefully it goes away again. But recently it went up to another level. So this was on May 3rd. It's now May 6th. I received a notice where they said, you are allowing your rabbits to run loose. You have too many rabbits. You are illegally keeping unconfined rabbits. You are illegally maintaining rabbits. You must contact animal welfare. Roger Henry, we need to speak with you regarding the manner in which you are keeping your rabbits. Failure to do so could result in prosecution. And I'm just like, prosecution? It seemed a bit extreme, but that's what they said. So I called up someone from this department, and I got kind of in an argument sort of with them, and then I set up a meeting for someone to come out here. That's what they want to do. And they came out, and the guy, basically just threatened to, are you going to abide by the ordinance of the city? Yes or no? And I was like, I knew a little bit about what the ordinance demanded, and I was like, no, I don't want to confine my rabbits. So we kind of went back and forth, and it eventually led to me being given a court date here in June concerning this issue. So just, in my opinion, a big waste of time for me, for the city of Tulsa, the money they have to spend, just for some guy with rabbits. So at this time, unfortunately, Dr. Beats and Melody have passed on. Very sad. But Dr. Beats had some children and grandchildren. That's who lives in my backyard now. I have 9 adults, and I have 2 baby rabbits. So let me read to you the ordinance, and then we'll talk about that for a little bit. So concerning rabbits, it says, rabbits kept in areas zoned for agriculture must be in pens or buildings located at least 100 feet from an adjoining property line. I am not in an agricultural zone. If rabbits are kept in a zone not for agriculture, they shall not exceed 6 adults and 14 young rabbits under the age of 8 weeks old, and shall be kept under the following minimum standards. So the first standard is the rabbits must be kept in a building which at its nearest point is no closer than 50 feet to any adjoining residence. The floors of such buildings shall be of easily cleanable construction and shall be maintained in a sanitary condition, not offensive or dangerous to the public health, by routinely cleaning and properly disposing of the droppings. And the third one is the outside openings of the building shall be screened to prevent the spread of disease by flies and vermin. So there you go. That's what they say for the city ordinance. And so officially, I have 9 adults. I don't have 6 adults, so I'm breaking the rule there. I don't have 14 young rabbits. I have 2. And I don't have them in a building. Like I asked the guy when he came out, I said, is this shelter, would that be considered a building? He was like, no. And so I guess they mean like a building, like a shed or a greenhouse type thing. So I'm like, well, I guess I could put a building up, but then if you look at the next part of the clause is that they have to be 50 feet away from an adjoining residence, and I live with a duplex. Now the duplex is divided by a fence, and my neighbor doesn't care at all. He never even goes out in his backyard, but he's like 5 feet away from me. So I don't know if they would consider that the adjoining property or the next property over, which that may be 50 feet away. It's going to be kind of close. But I can't abide by the building part of it unless, maybe I could go buy a shed or something. But the building part, they have to stay in the building. That's completely opposite of what I want to do or what I'm trying to do with rabbits. So the mission or the vision I have is that I've kind of just looked at rabbits and I've just decided, well, there's a few different categories. One is just wild rabbits that live out in the wild and, they live free. However, they're open to the elements and open to predators, open to get hit by cars. They probably live a fairly fear-filled life. They have to be on their paws, so to speak, all the time because there's dangers, potentially anywhere when they're just out free like that. So that's one class. And then you've got, a big chunk of the other rabbits in the world. They're living in pens and cages, either in people's properties, in their houses, or on their property somewhere. So that, they're living a safer life, and they have better access maybe to food and water potentially. However, it cannot be a healthy life. It's probably the exact opposite of what a rabbit would like to do, which is just hop around freely. They're confined many times. I look on Craigslist at all these rabbits, and almost all of them are confined in cages many times with a lot of other rabbits. So, just psychologically probably not good, and just physically not good. So I wanted to try to find kind of a happy medium with my project here in Tulsa, and that was to provide some protection with the fenced-in yard. I have maybe like a 40-foot by 30-foot yard, and so the fenced-in yard can keep some predators out. I haven't been, I had a hawk attack, a few months ago, and I have a neighbor cat that comes in every once in a while, but they're not out, completely in the elements. So I have reduced the predators, I believe, probably some, and they're not going to get hit by a car. They're more protected from the elements. Like I have climate-controlled shelter. While if they lived out in the wild, they would not have that. So they have steady access to water, which I don't know sometimes like how outside rabbits actually get water, especially in the summer if it's really, really dry. So I'm trying to find a happy medium where, they can run around, so they have a little bit of freedom and they have the ability to be physically healthy, but they also have the safety and the consistent food and shelter from the elements. So everything has gone great with this project. My rabbits seem to be happy, as far as I can tell, but the only problem has been the city now bothering me about this, and therein lies the problem now, and why I'm making this video. So, kind of back to the ordinance. The ridiculous thing about this situation is that, one, the building thing is, even if I did get a shed or something, like the animal welfare guy actually suggested, well, you can stick the shed way at the edge of your property, down at the edge, so it's like saying that, okay, that might be 50 feet away. And I'm just like, that's just goofy, man. I mean, come on. One, I don't want to confine them, and this 50-foot rule is just kind of goofy. And I'm just like, well, I was telling the guy, well, basically what you're doing here is you're going to get rid of my rabbits. And he said, no, I didn't say that. I said, well, that is the logical conclusion of these actions, because I cannot abide by, I will not and cannot abide by this ordinance. So what you're doing, in effect, is going to take away my rabbits. Now, my rabbits are a big part of my life. I lost a lot of things in the pandemic. I lost 2 businesses. I lost, I was a full-time music teacher for a number of years, and now I've had to, I don't have that same type of work. I do work part-time as a music teacher, but that is what I'm trained in and good at. So I lost that. I lost connection to a lot because of the pandemic and other reasons, friends and some family. And so at this point, my rabbits are my family and my good friends. So I am not happy at all that some bureaucratic governmental agency with these nitpicky rules are threatening to prosecute me, which is just ridiculous, or probably just fine me, but thus also take away what I consider to be my family, my family of rabbits. So I am not happy with these people at all. So that's about the ordinance, and that's about my impossibility to comply with it. And now just to talk a little bit about just the ridiculous hypocrisy of this ordinance and this agency. So it's an agency that's supposed to be about the welfare of animals. You know, like if they're seeing an animal that's being mistreated or not being fed, I assume they zip in and save the day, which I have no problem with that. However, what they're imposing on me and what they're suggesting to me is if I was allowed to just live my life and continue the way I'm treating my rabbits, that would be more humane than what they're suggesting. They're suggesting to confine them in a pen or a building, and that goes back to square one. You are restricting their movement, and thus, they're going to be less healthy. There's going to be more, talking about flies and vermin and fecal matter and stuff like that. There's going to be more of that in a concentrated area. And, psychologically, probably not good, just behavior-wise, just being so packed in with other rabbits. So the department that is actually about the welfare of animals is trying to force me to set up a situation that is more detrimental to their health than what I'm presenting. There it is. That's the whole crux of the argument, is that you have to look at the facts and go, this ordinance, I understand maybe the logic if if you've got 100 rabbits or something, you want, maybe you want them in an enclosed area. And this idea about, screening off the openings of the building, maybe if you have a huge rabbit building, where there's going to be tons of flies and stuff that would make sense. But I'm talking about 11 rabbits. And what I can see, the effect on public health of my rabbits is absolutely zero. The nuisance factor of my rabbits, the rabbits in my yard, is absolutely zero. They don't make any sound. They don't do anything. The only argument, under the nuisance category would be some of the rabbits that got out of my yard. I tried, and I didn't succeed in that category to keep them in, but stuff happens, and I'm trying to improve that. Maybe they dug in somebody's flower bed, or I don't know, but that would be maybe the beef, but hardly, that severe that they should take all my rabbits away. And where are they going to take them to anyway? Are they going to take them to the shelter, and would they actually be better off there? So just once again, just pointing out the hypocrisy of a department that's supposed to be about the welfare of animals is by their own rules and by the officer that came out to enforce it, is pushing a path of actions that would create worse health and a worse situation. So just kind of ridiculous. The whole thing is kind of ridiculous, and I'm shocked that it's actually gone this far, and it might even go further. But I wanted to make this video kind of just to explain what was happening at this time. Hopefully I'll go to court and, I don't know, nothing will happen, or the guy doesn't show up, or they throw it out, or, I'm probably going to get fined is what I would think would be probably is going to happen, but just kind of goofy, the whole thing. So that's basically it. I mean, there's a few other little things, but that's the main gist of the story. So I hope you have listened to this whole video and think about it and share it, and maybe it will create some sort of discussion about how rabbits are treated in society, just talking about rabbits in general, and maybe talking about some of the ordinances that appear in some of these cities, and should they be modified somehow? Because what I think I've created something that would be very, very helpful for rabbits in that they're allowed to hop around in a confined yard, not in a confined pen, and that's much, much healthier. The fact that I had some errors with my fence should not disqualify the concept. You know, the concept, if you had like a really super good fence and you're allowed to have your rabbits hop around in your own yard, and you keep it somewhat clean and supply them with food and shelter and water, and also try to protect them from the elements. Why is that a problem, and why is that a problem for public health or a problem for anybody? So thank you very much for watching. I may add some additional videos, but I really appreciate you watching, and hope everybody has a great day. Thank you very much.